Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Catan Fusion channel. I'm your host, Ken Slocum, and you may be wondering why I'm dressed so nicely for this video. Well, I thought it would be appropriate to wear my Catan tie, as I will be formally introducing the first step in setting up your game of Catan, which is constructing the board game frame. This will highlight one of the key differences between the traditional Catan rules and the Catan Fusion system, so you don't want to miss this. But before we get started, I need to remind you that Catan Fusion is not associated with the official Catan brand. If you have questions about this or anything else in this video, you can always visit www.catanfusion.com, which I've linked in the comment section below. So let's begin! When you start setting up a game of Catan, the first thing you need to do is decide on the dimensions of the board. This can be influenced by a lot of factors, such as the number of players you are playing. Catan supports up to 6, but the Catan Fusion system of course supports many more than that. The size of the playing surface, such as how big is the table that you're playing this game on. Or maybe you're one of those people who plays on the floor, in which case, how big is the floor surface? And the number of expansions and scenarios that you'll be using together. By the way, there are 13 official expansions and scenarios, but there are many more generated by fans of Catan content. Here's where you will encounter one of the first main differences between the official Catan system and the new Catan Fusion system. Traditionally, Catan has had a very limited and very prescribed method of setting up the game board. This makes sense because certain ways are more fair than others. This is why you might be familiar with the now famous hexagonal board shape. Let me demonstrate really quickly using a few frame pieces. Here we have 6 frame pieces from the official Catan game system. If you look at the way they are assembled, you will usually place them in a circle like this, and they will fit together just like this. When you're done, all you have to do is fill in the space in the middle with the hex tiles from the game, and you will be ready to play, and you will have a finished game board. But it wasn't until recently that Catan games actually started shipping with those handy frame pieces. Originally, all you did to set up your game of Catan was simply take the hexagonal tiles and place them in a hexagonal shape on your table. Now, while the frame pieces can be helpful, they also can be very restrictive on the type of gameplay. For example, simply using 6 of these will give you a perfectly hexagonal shaped board, which is great if you have a hexagonal shaped table with all the people sitting in a circle. But what if your playing area is not a hexagon? Or what if you don't have 6 people, and you'd rather have more of a 2-sided or 4-sided board? Then you run into issues with the traditional Catan system. If you watched my last video, I explained that the Catan Fusion system improves upon the traditional Catan game system by making it more accessible, expandable, and simple. Instead of restricting the possibilities for your Catan game, the Catan Fusion system makes it more simple and understandable, and gives you general guidelines, but doesn't restrict you to any one particular type of framing. So just for fun, I gathered all of the frame pieces I have from the various expansions that I own, and experimented to see what was the largest possible surface area I could enclose with those frame pieces. So here's what I ended up with. As you can see, I had to build this on the floor because it simply wouldn't fit any standard table that I could find. The frame looks a little bit strange if you're used to playing Catan, because it certainly doesn't look like a perfect hexagon. But that's why the Catan Fusion system is so great. It recommends that you simply build a board that fits the area you have to work with, instead of having to make a particular shape of a particular size, which may not work with the situations and circumstances that you are dealing with. Remember, the important thing is what you put in the frame, not the frame itself. Here's an example of a rather odd-shaped board that you could make yourself if you have a rectangular table instead of a hexagonal or round one. When extending the frame larger than the normal board size, it's actually necessary to flip them over to their blue side so that it gives the appearance of endless ocean, and so that you don't have to worry about shoreline not matching up with hexagons. Note that some of the frame pieces don't have to be flipped over in order to extend the frame. For example, the Traders and Barbarians expansion comes with these small pieces, which are already printed and fit perfectly with the existing board frames. By doing this, you can add more hexes without having to worry about doing any flipping whatsoever. But if you wanted to connect these frame pieces with, say, the extensions from the Seafarers expansion, you would need to flip them over. Let me show you. Here's an expansion piece from the Seafarers expansion. Notice, these two pieces don't go together. You have to either flip the Seafarers one over, which looks strange, or you can flip over the original frame piece to make it connect with the new Seafarers piece. And now it all looks blue, and it all looks good. You may have noticed that all of the Seafarer pieces are blue on both sides, so it doesn't really matter which way you use them. Here's an example of a one-size frame piece. It's blue on both sides. Here's a double blue extender piece, blue on both sides, and from the Seafarers expansion. Here's a unique extender piece from the Seafarers expansion, blue on one side, and on the other side, it has a little bit of helpful insight into telling you how much it is to purchase one of the game pieces. Here's the original frame piece, and here's one of the new Seafarers pieces. If you want to extend the original frame, flip it over to its blue side and connect it up with the new Seafarers piece. The Explorers and Pirates expansion pieces don't have to be flipped. They're already pre-flipped, and they actually have printing on one side which prevents you from using them incorrectly. Here's an example where there's printing on the back. You always have to use it on this side, which is the flipped side. Let's go back to our original frame piece. Suppose you want to extend this with one of the Explorers and Seafarers pieces. Notice they don't fit together. If you were to flip the Explorers and Pirates pieces over, it would have printing on one side that would prevent you from doing so. So instead, you keep this on the side that it is, and you flip over the original expansion piece, and now you have a completed blue frame. This goes for all of the Explorers and Pirates expansion frame pieces. Here's one expansion frame piece with a colorful hex that is part of the frame. If you were to use it on the other side though, it would have printing and you wouldn't be able to use it. The frame pieces from Legend of the Sea Robbers are already flipped and beautifully printed on the reverse, so they fit well together with each other and with the flipped version of the original Seafarers frame pieces. However, this makes the frame pieces from the Legend of the Sea Robbers expansion harder to use because the beautiful printing on the flip side clashes with the blue of the normal frame pieces. Of course, you can always flip over the Legend of the Sea Robber pieces to their unflipped side, which is actually blue, which works with the printing on the normal unflipped side. The Traders and Barbarians frame pieces can't be flipped at all because they have ugly printing on the back side. Purple, purple. This one is blue. That prevents you from using any of these frame pieces on anything but the side that works with the normal Catan frame pieces. However, they can be used with normal frame pieces the way they were designed to be used, which is the unflipped side. If you flip over the normal frame pieces, they won't work with the Traders and Barbarians expansion frame pieces. I mean, you could use them, but why would you want to? It just looks bad. So you're probably wondering, why bother using frame pieces at all? They seem like an awful lot of a bother, and there seems to be so many different conflicting types of frame pieces. Well, I'm glad you asked, because there's actually some very good reasons to use frame pieces. Personally, I think the frame pieces are a great idea. For one thing, they help set up the board. As I'll talk about in my next video, frame pieces can be very helpful when setting up an area for mystery hexes, or when simply placing hex tiles on the playing surface. Frame pieces also help keep the board together when the board gets bumped or the table gets moved. And they add beautiful shoreline art to the edge of your board. Plus, some frame pieces add extra functionality, like trading ports, which I'll talk about in a later video. But if you can't make frame pieces work for you, forget about them. They're really not that important. After all, Catan was initially released without any frame pieces at all. So let's take a look at what we've learned in this video. First, we learned that the size of the frame that you create for your game of Catan is dependent upon how big the board needs to be. Then, we realized that Catan was originally released without any frame pieces at all, and they were added to help add extra functionality, art, and beauty to the game. Then, we realized that some pieces fit together easily, some pieces have to be flipped to the blue side, and other pieces can't be flipped at all. Finally, we realized that it isn't completely necessary to use frame pieces for your game of Catan, as long as you can make the board and the hex tiles fit the playing area that you're working with. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe below. I'm your host, Ken Slocum, encouraging you to check out our website for more Catan Fusion fun. Thank you so much for watching, and go Catan!